The courtroom camera captured something that would break the internet and restore America's faith in justice. Karen Whitmore, a 48-year-old woman wearing designer sunglasses and clutching a pristine white cane, stumbled dramatically through my courtroom doors like she was auditioning for a disability awareness commercial. Her performance was almost theatrical, reaching out with exaggerated gestures, her head tilted in that way people think blind individuals hold themselves. What happened in the next 12 minutes would become the most shocking exposé of courtroom fraud ever captured on television, shared over 50 million times across every social media platform imaginable. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane. Karen didn't just get caught lying. She didn't just lose her case. What I did to expose her fraud was so brilliant, so devastatingly perfect, that it involved a four-legged lie detector that Karen never saw coming, literally. Karen Whitmore had walked into my courtroom believing she had created the perfect scam. For 6 months, she had been playing the role of a suddenly blind woman, collecting disability payments, suing former employers, and living off the sympathy and financial settlements of people who believed her tragic story. She had practiced her blind person act for weeks, studying YouTube videos, buying the right accessories, perfecting that lost and helpless demeanor that would make people feel guilty for questioning her. She had filed a lawsuit against Barbara Chen, a hardworking small business owner who ran a family accounting firm, claiming that Barbara had fired her the moment she became disabled. Karen was demanding $125,000 in damages for disability discrimination, wrongful termination, and emotional distress. She had dollar signs in her eyes and a performance ready that she believed would fool everyone, including me. Barbara Chen sat exhausted in the defendant's chair, a 52-year-old woman who had poured her life savings into building her small accounting business from nothing. She had hired Karen as a bookkeeper 8 months ago, and everything had been fine until Karen suddenly announced she was going blind from some rare medical condition Barbara had never heard of. At first, Barbara had been sympathetic, offering accommodations and flexibility, but then strange things started happening. Coworkers reported seeing Karen driving her car in the parking lot. Security footage showed Karen navigating the office perfectly when she thought no one was watching. Karen would claim she couldn't read documents, but then Barbara caught her scrolling through her phone, clearly reading text messages without any assistance. When Barbara finally confronted Karen about the inconsistencies, Karen threatened to sue her for discrimination. 2 weeks later, Barbara received the lawsuit papers and had spent $12,000 in legal fees defending herself against what she knew was complete fraud. I had been reviewing this case file for 2 days, and every instinct I had developed over 25 years as a family court judge in Manhattan was screaming that something was very wrong. I had seen every type of scam artist, every variety of fraud, and every breed of manipulator walk through my courtroom doors. But disability fraud was personal to me. I had worked with genuinely disabled individuals throughout my career, people who faced real challenges and discrimination. The idea that someone would fake a disability for money, mocking everyone who actually lived with visual impairments, filled me with a special kind of righteous anger. I had made some phone calls, I had done some investigating, and I had prepared something special for Karen Whitmore that would expose her lies in the most humiliating and undeniable way possible. What Karen didn't know as she performed her elaborate stumbling entrance was that I had already contacted the doctor whose name appeared on her medical documents. What Karen didn't realize was that I had reviewed the security footage from Barbara's office and the social media posts that Karen thought she had deleted. What Karen couldn't possibly imagine was that I had arranged for a special guest to attend today's proceedings, a guest who would prove beyond any doubt that Karen Whitmore could see perfectly fine. The trap was set, the cameras were rolling, and Karen was about to learn that faking a disability in my courtroom came with consequences that would destroy her life on national television. The courtroom buzzed with that electric energy that always accompanied my most dramatic cases. Karen was putting on the performance of her lifetime, fumbling with her papers in an exaggerated display of helplessness, accidentally knocking over a cup of water, gasping dramatically as if this minor spill was a catastrophic event in her difficult disabled life. She turned her face toward where she assumed the cameras were positioned, her expression carefully crafted to convey brave suffering and dignified perseverance. What she didn't notice Was my eyes narrowing into that expression that regular viewers know means someone is about to be absolutely destroyed? I opened the proceedings with my signature no-nonsense approach, my voice cutting through the courtroom like a scalpel. Mrs. Whitmore, you're suing Miss Chen for $125,000, claiming she fired you because you became blind. Tell me about your condition. Karen took a deep breath, preparing to deliver the sob story she had rehearsed dozens of times in front of her bathroom mirror. Your Honor, 6 months ago, my life changed forever. I woke up one morning and everything was just darkness. The doctors diagnosed me with a rare degenerative condition that destroyed my optic nerves. She paused for dramatic effect, her voice cracking with practiced emotion. I went from being an independent, successful professional to someone who couldn't even make coffee without help. Barbara fired me 3 weeks after my diagnosis. She claimed it was performance issues, but we all know the truth. She didn't want to deal with a disabled employee. The performance was almost impressive in its commitment to the lie. Several audience members looked genuinely moved by her story. Karen could feel the sympathy radiating from the gallery. This was going exactly as she planned. I sat perfectly still during this performance, my hands folded on the bench, my expression unreadable. But I was cataloging every exaggerated gesture, every medical detail that didn't quite add up. When Karen finished her opening statement, I turned to Barbara Chen. Miss Chen, what's your response to these allegations? Barbara's voice shook slightly as she began to speak, the exhaustion of 6 months fighting this fraudulent lawsuit evident in every word. Your Honor, I want to be absolutely clear. I did not fire Karen because of any disability. I fired her because she was committing fraud. Barbara pulled out a thick folder of evidence, her hands trembling with a mixture of anger and vindication. I have security footage from my office showing Karen navigating perfectly in complete darkness. I have witness statements from coworkers who saw her driving, reading, using her phone without any assisted technology. I have social media posts from after her supposed blindness, where she's clearly engaging in activities that require perfect vision. Karen's response was immediate and aggressive. That footage is doctored. Those social media posts were scheduled before I went blind. Your Honor, this is exactly the kind of discrimination disabled people face every day. Everyone assumes we're faking. Everyone questions our legitimacy. Just because I've learned to adapt doesn't mean I can see. I leaned forward slightly and the courtroom temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mrs. Whitmore, let's talk about your medical documentation. You submitted a letter from Dr. Michael Stevens, an ophthalmologist, confirming your diagnosis. Karen nodded confidently, adjusting her sunglasses with theatrical precision. Yes, Your Honor, Dr. Stevens has been treating me since my condition developed. He's a respected specialist in rare optical disorders. My smile was cold enough to freeze water. That's fascinating, Mrs. Whitmore, because I personally called Dr. Michael Stevens' office yesterday. The office manager informed me that Dr. Stevens retired 8 months ago and hasn't seen patients in over a year. Would you like to revise your statement about who's been treating you? The color drained from Karen's face behind her designer sunglasses. That must be a different Dr. Stevens. There are probably multiple ophthalmologists with that name in the area. The doctor's signature on your letter matches the retired Dr. Stevens' signature exactly. I had a handwriting expert compare it to his genuine medical documents. Your letter is a forgery, Mrs. Whitmore, a very poor forgery. The courtroom atmosphere shifted from sympathetic curiosity to hostile suspicion in the span of 30 seconds. But Karen wasn't ready to give up. She doubled down. Your Honor, I don't know what kind of investigation you think you've conducted, but I am genuinely blind. Perhaps there was a mix-up with the doctor's office, but I can assure you that my condition is absolutely real and absolutely devastating to my quality of life. I wasn't buying a single word. Mrs. Whitmore, let's conduct a simple test. I'm going to ask you to demonstrate how you use your white cane to navigate unfamiliar spaces. Please show the court how you would use your cane to walk from your current position to the defendant's table. Karen stood slowly, making a show of disorientation, and began tapping the cane in front of her with broad, sweeping gestures that looked more like she was sweeping a floor than navigating space. Mrs. Whitmore, that's not remotely how mobility canes are used. You're holding it like a broom. Genuine blind individuals use a specific rhythmic arc pattern that allows them to detect obstacles before physical contact. What you're doing is theatrical nonsense. Karen's performance became more frantic, more exaggerated. She stumbled deliberately, her voice rising with righteous indignation. "This is so humiliating, Your Honor, having to prove my disability to people who refuse to believe me. This is exactly why disabled people suffer in silence rather than seeking the accommodations and justice they deserve. That particular brand of fraudulent victimhood makes my blood boil with righteous fury. I've been crushing manipulative liars since before Karen was born." I pulled out another document, holding it up for the cameras. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'd like to discuss your social media activity, specifically some Instagram posts from 3 weeks ago." Karen's body language changed instantly, her shoulders tensing in sudden panic. "I don't use social media anymore. It's too difficult without being able to see the screen." "Really? Because these posts show you at a shooting range in Henderson, Nevada. The photographs clearly show you aiming a handgun at targets downrange. There are multiple shots of you hitting bullseyes at 25 yards. Tell me, Mrs. Whitmore, how does a completely blind woman aim and fire a weapon with that level of accuracy?" The silence that followed was deafening. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Those photos are old. They must have been posted by mistake. My account was hacked." I cut through the babbling with surgical precision. "The metadata on these images shows they were taken 3 weeks ago. The geotag places you in Nevada. The timestamp matches credit card receipts from the shooting range that have your name on them. You were in Nevada 3 weeks ago shooting targets with perfect accuracy while simultaneously collecting disability payments in California for your supposed blindness. That's fraud, Mrs. Whitmore. That's criminal fraud." Karen's voice rose to a near shriek, her victim persona completely abandoned. "You don't understand medical conditions, Judge. You clearly don't know anything about disability law. Maybe if you actually educated yourself instead of just being a TV judge who thinks she knows everything, you'd understand that blind people can still do things." The courtroom went absolutely silent. She had just committed the cardinal sin of my courtroom. She had insulted my intelligence, questioned my legal expertise, and dismissed my authority in front of millions of viewers. My expression transformed from skeptical to absolutely glacial. My voice, when I spoke, carried the weight of 35 years of legal experience and zero tolerance for entitled fraud. "Miss Whitmore, you just made the biggest mistake of your life, but before I rule on this case, I have one more test I'd like to conduct, a test that will prove beyond any shadow of doubt whether you can see or not. And trust me, this test is absolutely foolproof. Bailiff, please bring in our special guest." The courtroom door opened, and what walked through would change everything. Through the door walked a beautiful golden retriever, her coat gleaming under the courtroom lights, her brown eyes intelligent and alert. She wore a professional service dog vest with official courthouse certification tags, and she moved with the confident grace of a dog trained to the highest standards. This was Bailey, and she was about to become the most famous dog in internet history. I introduced Bailey to the courtroom, explaining that she was a certified service dog who worked with our court system, specifically trained to assist individuals with visual impairments in navigating courthouse environments. The moment that dog entered the courtroom, Karen Whitmore's entire body language changed. Her shoulders went rigid. Her breathing became shallow and rapid, picked up clearly by the sensitive courtroom microphones. Her head turned slightly, tracking Bailey's movement across the room with precision that would be impossible for someone who was genuinely blind. The audience sensed that something incredible was about to happen. I continued with clinical precision. "Mrs. Whitmore, since you claim to be completely blind and unable to navigate spaces without assistance, I'm going to have Bailey help you walk from the plaintiff's table to my bench. This is a standard accommodation we provide for individuals with visual impairments during court proceedings." "I don't need a dog, Your Honor. I have my cane. I've learned to navigate with my cane." My smile was absolutely merciless. "Humor me, Mrs. Whitmore. Surely you have no objection to accepting help that's specifically designed for people with your condition." The handler began walking Bailey slowly toward Karen's position. Karen's reaction was anything but calm. Her eyes, hidden behind those designer sunglasses, were clearly tracking the dog's approach. She shifted her weight backward, away from the approaching animal. Her hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mrs. Whitmore, Bailey is approaching you from the right side. Since you claim to be completely blind, you shouldn't be able to know that without hearing her movements or being told her position. Bailey hasn't made any sound yet, and I haven't told you where she is. I can sense her presence. Blind people develop heightened other senses. I can feel the air movement or something. Air movement in a climate-controlled courtroom. How convenient. Bailey reached Karen's position and sat directly in front of her, perfectly positioned in her path. Mrs. Whitmore, please walk toward my bench. Bailey will remain where she is. Use whatever navigation technique you normally use. Karen stood slowly, her white cane extended in front of her with theatrical caution. She began to move forward, tapping the cane in those same exaggerated sweeping motions that had already revealed her ignorance of proper technique. And then something happened that Karen couldn't control or fake her way through. As she approached the spot where Bailey sat waiting, Karen smoothly adjusted her path to walk around the dog. She didn't bump into Bailey. She didn't use her cane to detect an obstacle. She simply walked around the dog with the visual precision of someone who could see exactly where the animal was positioned. I pounced on this moment with devastating accuracy. Mrs. Whitmore, how did you know Bailey was sitting directly in your path? You adjusted your walking direction before your cane would have detected her presence. You navigated around her with perfect spatial awareness. I heard her breathing. I sensed her. This is ridiculous. Why are you attacking me instead of focusing on the discrimination I suffered? Because you're not blind, Mrs. Whitmore, and I'm about to prove it in a way that will leave absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind. Bailiff, hand me that tennis ball from my chambers. What happened next would be replayed 50 million times across every social media platform on Earth. The bailiff retrieved a bright yellow tennis ball and handed it to me. Karen stood frozen, her lies closing in around her like walls of a collapsing prison. I held the bright yellow tennis ball in my hand, turning it slowly so the courtroom cameras could capture it clearly. The fluorescent lights made the ball almost glow against the dark wood of my bench. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to conduct one final test, a test that genuine blind individuals fail every single time because they cannot see objects moving through space, a test that will prove conclusively whether you have vision or not. Your Honor, this is unnecessary. I've already provided medical documentation. This is harassment of a disabled person. Your forged medical documentation. You mean the documentation from a retired doctor who hasn't practiced in 8 months? Without any warning, without any countdown or preparation, I tossed the tennis ball directly at Karen's face. It wasn't a gentle toss. It was a firm throw with enough speed that anyone would instinctively react to protect themselves. The ball sailed through the air in a perfect arc, captured by multiple camera angles, heading straight for Karen's head. And then something happened that would destroy Karen's entire fraud in a single, undeniable moment. Karen's hands shot up with lightning-fast reflexes. Her arms moved with the precise coordination of someone with perfect vision tracking a moving object through three-dimensional space. Her fingers opened at exactly the right millisecond, and she caught the ball cleanly, firmly, with the hand-eye coordination of someone who could see perfectly. The courtroom exploded. The audience gasped in collective shock. Barbara Chen's mouth fell open in vindication. The bailiff actually stepped back in surprise, and Karen Whitmore stood there frozen like a statue, the bright yellow tennis ball clutched in both hands, her designer sunglasses still on her face, the evidence of her perfect vision captured from 6 different camera angles in crystal clear high definition. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved, nobody spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the courtroom's air conditioning system and the faint whir of cameras capturing every detail of Karen's absolute destruction. Then Karen seemed to realize what she had just done. The color drained from her face so completely she looked like she might faint. Her hands began to shake, the tennis ball trembling between her fingers. She tried to speak, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. My voice cut through the stunned silence like an executioner's blade, measured and merciless. Mrs. Whitmore, would you like to explain to this court how a completely blind woman just caught a ball thrown at her face? Better yet, let's discuss how you tracked that ball's movement from my hand to yours with absolutely perfect hand-eye coordination, the kind of coordination that requires functional vision, working optic nerves, and a brain that can process visual information in real time. That was a reflex. That was just instinct. Anyone would have done that. Their hands would have just come up automatically. I leaned forward, my expression absolutely withering in its contempt. Mrs. Whitmore, blind people do not catch balls thrown at them. Blind people cannot track moving objects through space. Blind people cannot coordinate their hand movements with perfect precision to intercept an object they cannot see. What you just demonstrated is called visual motor coordination, and it requires sight. The dam broke completely. Karen ripped off her sunglasses with shaking hands, revealing eyes that were perfectly normal, pupils dilating appropriately to the courtroom lights. No cloudiness, no damage, no sign of the degenerative condition she had claimed destroyed her optic nerves. Real tears began streaming down her face. Not the practiced crocodile tears of her victim performance. These were real tears of fear and humiliation. Your Honor, please, I can explain. I made a mistake. I was desperate. I lost my job and I needed money, and I just thought. I cut right through her pathetic excuses. You thought you could fake a disability and get rich. You thought you could mock people with real visual impairments by pretending to be blind. You thought you could manipulate the system, exploit sympathy, and destroy innocent business owners like Barbara Chen, who did absolutely nothing wrong except catch you in your fraud. I pulled out yet another folder, this one thicker than all the previous evidence combined. Let's talk about the full scope of your criminal enterprise, Mrs. Whitmore, because this isn't your first fraudulent disability lawsuit, is it? Karen's eyes widened with horror as I began reading from the documents. 4 separate lawsuits against 4 different employers, all claiming the same sudden blindness, all demanding 6-figure settlements, 6 months of Social Security disability payments meant for people with genuine disabilities, a fraudulent handicapped parking placard. The total amount stolen through this scam, approximately $87,000. That's not civil fraud, Mrs. Whitmore. That's criminal fraud. That's theft. That's conspiracy. That's forgery of medical documents. Karen had collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably, her entire world crumbling around her in real time on national television. Everything she had built through months of lies was being destroyed in minutes. I delivered my ruling with the finality of a guillotine blade. Mrs. Whitmore, judgment for the defendant. Your case is dismissed with prejudice. You will pay Barbara Chen $5,000 for her legal fees and the time she wasted defending herself against your fraudulent lawsuit. Furthermore, I am ordering the bailiff to contact the district attorney's office immediately. You will be facing criminal charges for disability fraud, insurance fraud, forgery, and perjury. The consequences came swiftly and mercilessly. Within hours of the episode airing, the clip of Karen catching that tennis ball went viral across every social media platform. 50 million views, 100 million views. The numbers kept climbing. The hashtags trended worldwide. Disability rights advocates praised what I had done. Real blind individuals shared their outrage at Karen's mockery of their daily challenges. The district attorney filed 17 counts of fraud against Karen Whitmore, up to 10 years in prison and mandatory restitution of every dollar she had fraudulently collected. Barbara Chen's business recovered and thrived. Bailey the Golden Retriever became an internet sensation, and Karen Whitmore ultimately pleaded guilty to multiple fraud charges, sentenced to 3 years in prison plus full restitution. She lost everything because she thought she could fake a disability for profit and get away with it. But she forgot one crucial thing. I don't play games with frauds who mock people with real disabilities. This story proves something that every entitled scammer needs to understand. You cannot fake your way through life and expect to avoid consequences forever. Karen thought she was clever. She thought her performance was good enough to fool everyone. She thought the system was too broken to catch her. But she was wrong about all of it. And sometimes justice comes with 4 legs, a wagging tail, and the ability to expose lies that humans tried to hide. Faking a disability isn't just fraud. It's an insult to every person who actually lives with real challenges every single day. It's theft from systems designed to help people who genuinely need support. It's a mockery of human suffering for personal profit. Karma isn't just real. Karma has perfect timing, and sometimes it comes in the form of a golden retriever and a tennis ball. Don't be a Karen, don't fake disabilities, don't commit fraud, because eventually you'll face someone who actually cares about truth and justice, and your lies will come crashing down in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. This has been the story of how Bailey the dog became a hero and Karen the fraud became a cautionary tale.